After the last video in the Feminist Fail series, could there possibly be a cringier feminist fail?
Hey Carol, what you playing?
Oh, I just got Sex Fighter 3, The Sexening. Check it out.
Why isn't she wearing any clothes?
What? No, she is. It's just that her hair is her clothes, and it's also her weapon. So when she attacks enemies, she's like temporarily naked, but that just shows that she's like totally sexually confident and empowered and doesn't have time for anyone's repressive ideas about female sexuality.
Oh, that's right. Anita Sarkeesian still exists. Hello everyone, this is My Two Cents. You ever hear the words patriarchy, oppression, women's liberation? Of course you have, because feminists are some of the loudest and most obnoxious people on the planet. And perhaps none are more obnoxious than Anita Sarkeesian and her sexually ambiguous crew. For a long time now, women in the West have had the complete freedom to dress and act however they'd like. But apparently that's not real freedom and equality for women. According to Sarkeesian, real freedom and equality won't be achieved until women everywhere are celebrated equally and unequivocally, just for being women. In other words, attractive or successful women can't be admired and celebrated any more than any other women. Everyone must be forcibly made equal. Gee, wonder where that idea comes from. More importantly, for Sarkeesian, real freedom and equality is everyone acting and thinking exactly like her, without any dissent, as evidenced by the fact that comments are disabled on her video and her like-to-dislike ratios are not displayed. Guess that means we'll just have to take her on in a response video. Let's get into it.
Well, it's time to talk about one of the least contentious, most universally agreed upon topics in all of feminist discourse: internalized misogyny.
Internalized misogyny, huh? I'm guessing that means that women are being oppressed internally, even if they don't outwardly realize it. Even if a woman is perfectly happy with her own life choices, she could still be being oppressed. Funny how you can be totally happy and successful as a woman, yet still be oppressed.
Okay, let's get started. Feminism is fundamentally about...
Excuse me, Anita? Yeah, hi. I have a question.
What is it?
How come I basically never hear you speak up for Sarah Huckabee Sanders or Betsy DeVos or other women on the right? Seems like your so-called feminism really just goes right out the window when it comes to standing with women you disagree with politically.
But feminism is a political movement. You can't separate it from a person's politics.
That's absolutely true, and I'm glad that you admit it outright. But it proves that you don't really support women as a whole. You only support women who think just like you. You don't support a woman's right to think for herself or make her own decisions.
In the simplest terms, feminism is about the liberation of women as a group, and intersectional feminism acknowledges that factors like race, class, sexuality, gender identity, physical ability, and others also impact the ways we are privileged or marginalized.
Translation: I don't get everything I want all the time, so it must be because I'm not a straight white male. I'm always amazed by how Anita can say that women are oppressed as she speaks into the camera and broadcasts her nonsense to 200,000 some brain-dead subscribers who pay her to do it. Notice that Anita's never been deplatformed like Sargon or anyone else.
Contrary to what some people might think, feminism is not about securing power for individual women in systems that oppress other women. It's about liberating all women from those oppressive systems.
Yeah, but as we're about to see, only you get to decide what constitutes liberation. And you have no problem using force to stop women from doing what they want to do with their lives if it doesn't fit with your particular vision for society. How does that at all fit with liberation? And for those who say that feminists don't want to force women to do what they want to do, remember what happened to the grid girls a little while back.
When women passively or actively support such systems, they're working in direct opposition to the goals of feminism. So it doesn't make any sense for feminism to support them or their actions.
I don't support a lot of things. Does that mean I should be able to use force to make other people behave the way I want them to?
And the truth is, there are a lot of women out there who work against the best interests of women as a group. Maybe they crusade to deny us our reproductive rights, or maybe they support policies that make it harder for poor working women to make a decent wage, or take time off for maternity leave.
Or maybe they recognize that no one should have to pay for your irresponsible decisions, but you. You're free to have sex with whoever you want. No one is obligated to pay for your birth control. You're free to do whatever you want with your time. No one is obligated to pay you more than what you both voluntarily agree on. And for the record, calling abortion reproductive rights is a highly misleading term, but I'll not go down that rabbit trail at the moment.
Yeah, there's a veritable 24-hour Las Vegas buffet's worth of options available to any woman looking to do her part to support patriarchy and misogyny.
When you hear feminists talk about internalized misogyny in women, this is often the sort of thing we're talking about. From the women who campaigned against giving women the right to vote in the early 1900s, to the women who voted for our current misogynist president in 2016.
And I'm guessing you voted for Bill Clinton, or at least his rape-enabling wife, right?
Internalized misogyny is present whenever women have absorbed or acted on the false sexist beliefs about girls and women that our society bombards us with all the time.
You might believe their beliefs are false, but does that mean it's not their right to act upon their sincerely held convictions if they're not hurting others in the process?
Internalized misogyny can cause women to see other women as inherently more manipulative, or less intelligent than men, or less capable of being doctors or scientists or mathematicians.
Hate to break it to you, but all those things are generally true. There are studies that have suggested that men, on average, are more intelligent than women, such as one recently conducted at Erasmus University in Rotterdam. And it's certainly true that, on average, men tend to pursue difficult careers like being doctors or lawyers more than women do, on average. Does it mean that women are inherently incapable of doing these things? No, it's just a statistical reality. There is nothing that prevents a woman from living her life as she sees fit and pursuing the career that she wants to pursue. Except, of course, idiots like you who think you know what's better for every woman alive than she does and would gladly use force to make her conform.
It can cause us as women to be deeply insecure in our own capabilities or self-worth.
I'm sorry, but us as women? You can call yourself whatever you'd like, dude. No one really thinks you're a woman.
And like so many sexist beliefs, internalized misogyny is often unconscious, absorbed by us without us even noticing. In fact, because sexist ideas are so inescapable in our culture, it's inevitable that most women absorb some of them at one time or another to one degree or another.
This isn't a minor problem. It's actually a massive one. Patriarchy cannot keep functioning if women stop supporting it. White supremacy cannot keep functioning if white women stop supporting it. But they do support it in vast numbers.
Still waiting to hear about all the ways that the patriarchy and white supremacy are holding you down as you broadcast your absurd views to your brain-dead audience and get paid for it.
Exit polls suggest that 53% of white women voted for Trump. Hearing him talk about grabbing pussies wasn't enough to get them to stop. Hearing him characterize Mexicans as rapists wasn't enough. I mean, what does he have to do to get white women to stop supporting him?
I don't know. What do men like Bill Clinton, Cory Booker, Keith Ellison, and Justin Trudeau have to do to get women like you to stop supporting them? I'm not defending Trump, but I have reason to be skeptical that you actually care about any of his character flaws.
Y'all, white supremacist patriarchy is a hell of a drug.
So yeah, some people like to argue that feminism means standing with all women all the time, even when their actions are directly harmful to other women.
And how are their actions harming other women? This ought to be good.
How does that work exactly? We're supposed to root for the poor brown woman working 60 hours a week for starvation wages while trying to raise her children, and for the high-powered female executive at that same company who's getting obscenely rich refusing to pay her employees a living wage? This isn't some friendly exhibition ball game between your two favorite teams that you can watch and be like, I don't really care who wins. I just want to see some great baseball out there on the field today. You have to pick a side.
Yeah, you can pick the side that acknowledges that wages are determined by supply and demand, and that wealth inequality decreases the more economically free a country is. or you can pick the side that forcibly steals from others until everyone is equally poor. I'd be curious to know how much of your own salary you donate to help poor, underprivileged women. Why don't you tell us that?
Internalized misogyny manifests in many forms, and its impact goes way beyond the workplace and the voting booth, often deeply influencing our own ideas about what it means to be a woman in the world and to express our own sexuality.
Well, taking a look at you, it's clear that no one is stopping you from expressing your particular sexuality, whatever that might be.
See, we're regularly sold the notion that being sexually liberated as a woman looks a lot like being a sexual fantasy for a man.
Yeah, and I believe that your feminist predecessors back in the sexual revolution first sold that idea. Are you saying they were wrong?
Back in the early days of Playboy in the 1950s, the magazine's founder, Hugh Hefner, positioned his work as liberating for everyone, women included. In his mind, Playboy challenged what he called our culture's ferocious anti-sexuality, our dark anti-eroticism. And maybe that sounds good in theory. After all, there's no question that female sexuality has been oppressed and demonized throughout much of human history.
And as we're about to find out, you want to do just that. You want to dictate to women what they can and can't do with their own bodies. And for the record, a woman having the freedom to express her sexuality as she pleases doesn't mean she's always going to get the results she hopes for. Freedom of expression doesn't guarantee desired outcomes.
And that this is one of the great oppressive tools of patriarchy, propping up everything from the burning of witches at the stake in medieval Europe to the rape culture of today that blames women for being raped instead of holding men accountable for their actions.
No. People like me want real rapists to be held responsible for their actions. It's people like you who want to give feminist allies like Bill Clinton a free pass while condemning men like Brett Kavanaugh, even though not a shred of credible evidence was brought against them.
But in actuality, Playboy's images had nothing to do with liberating female sexuality. They were about presenting women as objects of male desire.
Oh, just shut up. Anyone with half a brain knows they were about making sales. It just so happens that objects of male desire tend to sell, while objects of feminist desire don't. Don't like it? Tough. Think it's immoral? Many people do. However, Hef at least understood that if he wanted to build a profitable business, he had to sell his customers what they wanted.
In fact, in the Playboy world, female sexuality was seen as, to use Hef's word, immoral. At one point, Playboy bunnies were forbidden from accepting dates, and when asked about how he would feel if his own daughter appeared in Playboy, his response indicated that her being desired by men would be totally super cool, but that she damn well better not actually have any sexual desires of her own.
My guess is that Hefner understood that if a beautiful woman can use her body to make money when she's young, she'll be well set up for her future, even when she's no longer young and beautiful. However, if she sleeps around, she'll become increasingly less desirable to men and have significantly less of a chance of having a husband and a family someday. Heck, Playboy's readers probably like the idea of a smoking young bombshell who's never been touched by a man than one who's a total whore, and thus it's good for sales. You don't have to like it. I'm not saying women shouldn't have the right to sleep around if they want to, but Hefner did have the right to set the terms of employment for his employees, and like it or not, sleeping around doesn't tend to set a woman up for success.
And yet, from Playboy to Girls Gone Wild and beyond, the tendency of women to sometimes embrace these forms of sexual expression is no mystery. Fed up with a society that tells us that any expression of sexuality or sexual desire just isn't appropriate for women, the ubiquitous images of women as objects of desire can seem liberating in comparison.
Or maybe some women voluntarily choose to engage in the modeling industry because they realize there was a demand for it and therefore money to be made. But then you can't stand the fact that some women are cut out for modeling and some aren't. Doesn't fit with your everyone is equal vision, does it?
I mean, face it. If your only two options are a repressed, puritanical existence with all the sexuality of Leave It to Beaver, or a never-ending segment of MTV's Spring Break, you're probably gonna go with Spring Break.
False dilemma. Who on earth thinks that those are the only two options for a woman? My guess is you support the right of a Muslim woman to wear a hijab if she wants to, Why then would you deny the right of a smoking hot babe to be a bikini model if she wants to?
But like it or not, embracing these images can also be an example of us as women internalizing misogyny. Even though they may seem like a step toward freedom, in a way, they're really just letting us trade one kind of prison for another.
So it's oppression if they're allowed to make their own choices about where to work and what to wear, but it's liberation if you get to tell them what they can and can't do all the time.
One that sets narrow restrictions on what female sexuality and sexual empowerment look like. They tell us that empowerment is all about making ourselves desirable to men. And if there's one thing these images are not interested in, it's what the woman herself might feel, what she might want, what she might find desirable.
So you're assuming that no woman wants to look hot and desirable to men? Look, lady, just because you're overweight and know that most men will never find you attractive, doesn't mean that women who are hot and attractive are being oppressed. Is that maybe what this is all about? You're jealous of attractive, successful women?
Under patriarchy, the promise of female liberation through sexual expression sometimes ends up being a trap that actually works to center men and male desire all over again.
One of the most common tactics people use to dismiss feminists when we criticize harmful ideas about female sexuality is to say we're being sex negative. As if there are only two settings on the dial. Either you're a completely repressed prude, or you're a cool chick who's totally down with female objectification because that's supposedly what owning your sexuality looks like.
No. What we support is the right of women to make their own decisions about what they wear and how they act, and afterwards to face the natural consequences of their decisions. It's you who seem to think that all women need to fit into a specific mold where they only act in accordance with the feminist agenda, and then everyone else is forced to praise them for doing so.
But that's absurd. We're not sex negative. Sex can be wonderful. Sex can be boring. Sex can be harmful. And we're just being critical of some of the specific messages and values embedded in our cultural ideas around sex and sexuality.
Contrary to what those folks who characterize us as stern mother superiors trying to oppress other women might think, most feminists who are critical of these sleek, commercial images of female sexuality actually want more representations of female sexual desire, not less. We just want them to be different, better, more diverse, representative of more different kinds of women.
That's like saying, I'm not opposed to advertisements for cheeseburgers, I just want there to be an equal number of advertisements for eggplant sandwiches. No one is stopping you from advertising eggplant sandwiches, but I seriously doubt they're going to sell as well as the cheeseburgers. Why do you think that is?
And we want them to be about humanizing women and saying that our sexual desire is as important as anyone else's, instead of being about fulfilling male fantasies. Images and stories that truly center, explore, and celebrate female desire and sexuality can actually challenge the culture that leads so many women to carry around internalized misogyny.
Again, no one is stopping you from publishing whatever pictures and stories of women you want. However, you can't force people to buy and enjoy those products. Your problem isn't your lack of ability to express yourself however you'd like. Your problem is your lack of ability to make men stop liking hot women and start liking sexually ambiguous wrecks like yourself.
To support open misogynists like Trump, or to campaign against their own reproductive freedoms.
So save your little gotcha comments of, but this character was designed by a woman, or, but she enjoys being a submissive housewife who only cares about what her husband wants. That doesn't mean there's no sexism. Women absolutely can and do perpetuate sexism too. Of course we do. It's everywhere. It's inescapable. It's there in our childhoods, our adolescence, and our adulthoods. And look, this should be obvious, but we know some of you just love to deliberately misinterpret us, so let me spell it out for you. We're absolutely not saying that people should never dress in sexy ways, or take sexy photos, or enjoy feeling attractive to others.
Really? Then what are you saying?
People of all genders like to feel admired, desired, validated, and appreciated.
What we are saying is that because of patriarchy and sexism, women have largely been valued based specifically on our desirability to men, and that often even notions of empowered female sexuality are more about fulfilling male fantasy and desire than about what we actually want ourselves. We need to push back against this and establish images of female liberation and desire that aren't rooted in what sexism has always told us women should be, but instead are all about saying that we are people too, with our own desires and dreams that are just as valid and meaningful as anyone else's.
And there you have it. You think that you can tell men that they're not allowed to desire certain kinds of women. They have to be equally attracted to all different types of women and purchase magazines at equal rates with all kinds of women represented. You can cry all you want about how men don't find overweight, bitchy women attractive. It won't change the reality a bit. Here's how it is, Anita. Everyone has equality of opportunity, but not everyone is equal. Some people are attractive. Some people aren't. Some people are intelligent. Some people aren't. You can accept this, play with the hand you're dealt, and make something of yourself. Or you can cry and pout as you use force to hold the successful people back. This is what every Marxist does until they realize that everyone is now equally miserable.
That's not just so men learn to see us as full human beings, it's also so we can learn to see ourselves that way too.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. Women everywhere should have the right to make their own decisions. They should be able to choose how they'll dress. They should be able to choose how they'll act. They should be able to choose what career they'll pursue or if they'll pursue a career at all. However, no one, man or woman, will ever be able to force the rest of the world to celebrate and praise their decisions. If you're happy with how you are, great. If you'll never be happy so long as there are more attractive and more successful people than you, well then you'll never be happy. Is that really how you want to live? And that is my 2 cents. Take it for what it's worth. Before I go, just a quick reminder to everyone about Christmas merch in the My 2 Cents Teespring store. This t-shirt will only be available until December 31st, so be sure to get yours now. Thanks everyone for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. And if you're a fan of my channel, please consider becoming a patron. For as low as $1 a month, you'll receive instant access to patron-exclusive videos, earn the right to participate in patrons-only live streams, have your name listed in the end credits of every video, and numerous other rewards. Be sure to check out my blog, my2centsvideos.com, and all other social media platforms as well. Uploads are every Thursday and Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, so stay tuned for more videos.